Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Absolute Batman issue 18, written by Scott Snyder, with art by Eric Canet, colours by Frank Martin, and letters by Clayton Cowles. Poison Ivy's grasp on Batman gets tighter this issue as, far away from Gotham in New Mexico, Martha Wayne calls her son, explaining that she'll be out of town for a bit, but she wants him to know that she loves him and he shouldn't ever change for anyone. Soon Martha is met by the Court of Owls, giving them the code phrase as they bag her and drive off to an undisclosed location. We see the court very briefly here, but I do really like the new court mask. It looks very much kind of like a Kamen Rider type helmet, and just the overall design feels more tactical and gruff compared to the Prime Universe court, which were very much, the rich elites, aristocratic in, the suits and all that sort of stuff. Back in Gotham, Batman fights the various versions of Poison Ivy, told by Alfred over the comms that he cannot let his cowl come off, since if it does, he'll have mere moments before he is infected and his genetics will shatter and become part of Ivy. Bruce knows that it won't come off as he punches, kicks, and stomps the Ivy monsters, telling Alfred to find him a weakness to exploit, but Alfred turns up nothing. Eric Canet's artwork on this arc continues to just be incredible, and I love the contrast he and Frank Martin do with the colours in this particular part of the book. It's just so bright and colourful and vibrant, and it's being invaded by a Batman who's this big spiky black mass just stomping through the pages, almost like a virus, kind of like something that's infecting everything, and which is, ironic, being that Ivy, the colourful one, is the one trying to infect Batman, the dark black mass, with its pollen and with its genetics. It's a great way to draw your eye across the page and through the panels as well. We get more of Ivy's traumatic origin, as well as it's revealed that after the chemical fire in the lab, all that was left was Pamela's heart, which her mother was allowed to see and touch. Her mother asks the scientists if she is still alive, but they know that she isn't. However, Ivy is, and she wanted to scream out to her mother, but she didn't understand how she could move and communicate yet, though through the primal forces, only being able to feel colours like the green, the red, and the black. So yeah, I guess they are making Ivy a type of avatar of the elemental forces of this world, a la Swamp Thing. I think Ivy usually is associated with those, or at least more recently has been associated with the colours of the elemental forces, so, makes sense, and I am interested to see what Snyder has in store for that side of the DC cosmic realm, because we haven't really dived into that in the Absolute Universe yet, and what is that like in a world created by Darkseid? I'm sure it's quite horrifying, and I'm intrigued to see more of that. As her mother leaves, Ivy can sense the black inside of her, knowing that she will die later that afternoon, dying alone on a bus stop bench where she won't be found for 3 days, and after 3 days in the snow and ice, she'll be frozen stiff and parts of her will have fallen off. Ivy tries to reach out to her, and in that moment, she grows something out of the heart, meaning she is slowly figuring out how to control her new body again. Batman continues to fight the monstrous Ivy in the present, who keeps trying to convince the Batman to join her, and in doing so, it will do them both good, since then they will have no weaknesses, and Batman just needs to embrace her. Bruce's mind goes back to when he was still trying to help his friends, never giving up on Waylon, Oswald, Eddie, and Harvey. And we get to see a little bit more about Bruce's help with these guys, which we saw in the last issue where he was going around always trying to be there for them, and we find out that left the hospital and disappeared. He also disappeared from his job as the DA, as he has been let go and been put on leave, being that he had associations with the Batman and the government did not like that. Bruce also gets a message from his mother at this time, but he always stops himself from playing it, wanting to save it for the moment he'll need it the most, and this is the message that was at the start of the issue that Martha was recording before being taken by the Court of Owls. So this message, and something that happens a little later on in the issue, really feels like this is the first signpost that Martha might be on her way to a death, or something similar to that. Something's going to happen to her, I imagine. It's kind of the classic thing, the final message from a dead loved one that, the person keeps on like a cell phone, or it's like a picture or something like that helps Bruce push onward. It's the part of their driving force, and I have to imagine that's what that is going to be for him. Of course, there could be a twist coming and, it could go in the complete opposite direction, but I'm intrigued to see if Scott is actually going to go that route and actually kill off Martha. Bruce's thoughts are put on hold as Ivy slams him into the ground, telling Batman that they are the beginning to become one, and she can feel how much he is hurting thanks to his friends and his mother. Ivy fires some flower rockets at Batman, telling him to become her knight, and together they can beat back the monsters. The flower missiles explode pollen over Bruce, warping his vision and reality as Ivy transforms again, deciding to drag Batman into the light one way or another. Martha meanwhile meets with the Court of Owls proper, who aren't too happy she contacted them and think she must be punished for it. Martha doesn't really care since something is happening in Gotham, something she thought that contacting them was worth the risk for. The court demand to know what gives her the right to contact them, and this is where we learn that Martha wasn't just part of the court, she was a Talon of the court. One of their best, so she gets more of a chance than anyone else should. I really love the shift to making the court a more militaristic resistance type of organization that only has a few members. They seem to be sort of rebelling against like the evil governments and all that sort of stuff. I still think this is the protest group that both Thomas and Martha Wayne were a part of, and maybe it started out as the protest group and then eventually became the Court of Owls and turned into something maybe Martha became disillusioned by. Maybe they were being a bit too militaristic, maybe they were being a bit too violent, and she didn't want anything to do with that, and which is why she left. I'm intrigued to see if we're going to find any more about this. I assume we are. I absolutely assume we're going to have a big Court of Owls episode, being that, you know, Scott Snyder created these beings, created them, and ushered in them through the New 52 and all that sort of stuff. So I imagine he's got something in the chamber for a new version of the court, one that maybe might be a bit more heroic and maybe want to actually aid Batman and be allies with him. That's very interesting. I'm intrigued to see what he's going to do with them. Back in Gotham, Batman keeps resisting the pollen Ivy has doused him with, despite the villain making a pretty convincing argument about Batman wanting to reshape things, and ever since he appeared, his seeds have been spread throughout the city, so change is coming, whether he likes it or not, and he needs to accept that. More of Bruce's memories are invaded by Ivy, and we see how Alfred is given the assignment to take down the Batman by his bosses, who want him off the Jack Grimm case and onto the Batman one. Harley Quinn also comes by and tells him that she and the Red Hoods are behind him 100% and want to help him out. Dick Grayson meanwhile promises himself he'll do something about the Batman tomorrow as Bruce heads home from his construction job, not wanting to go with his co-workers to the new Batman-themed bar downtown, something Bruce is enraged by but cannot show it. Ivy fully invades these memories, telling Bruce that he can walk about and write in his books about all of this, but the change is happening, and the ones whose plans he disrupted can see it and hate it. Jack Grimm is one of these people, and Ivy knows all about him, and the so-called Horned King, who is waiting and watching them all. I really like this idea of Ivy using Bruce's own memories of things he's seen and done around Gotham, and how they are reacting to Batman to push him to turn to her. She's manipulating him by showing him why Batman needs to exist. And because he's done all of this stuff, he can't put that genie back in the bottle. It's out. People already know about it. So he needs to accept that. Such an interesting inverse, since a villain usually wants to rid the world of the hero and scrub the world clean of them, not want them to flourish and in turn spread their own infection. So it's genius that she's kind of like clinging onto it, living up to her name, Ivy, and hey, maybe that might come back a little later on in the issue. She's living up to the name Ivy and clinging on to Batman to try and make herself flourish and make herself worthy of defeating Jack Grimm. I quite like that. It's not particularly villainous, but it's definitely parasitic in nature. Since Ivy really is not a villain, she's someone who is just out for revenge. She very clearly wants revenge on Jack Grimm for doing what he did to her, but it's the way she's going about it that is making her at odds with Batman. She's putting innocence in danger, and he won't stand for that. Ivy's story continues as she reveals that she was locked away by Grimm, whose noise cannons and scientists kept her at bay. Then she saw Bruce running naked through her biome and knew if she got the chance, she would join with him and fight against Grimm. Ivy reveals a giant fungal infection growing nearby, knowing Batman could evolve on his own and he might be able to stop Jack Grimm, but he's not strong enough for that. but when she finally releases the spores, it will turn Bruce into something new, something strong and beautiful, and together they can stop the Joker. This is what I was saying, where Ivy just wants revenge on the Joker, knowing Bruce does as well, so she's trying to play to that and try to tempt him to come to her side and help, and that's what I find really interesting. She's not really a villain. She's just someone who wants revenge, and as I said, it's the way she's going about it that's putting her at odds with Batman. Maybe if she went about it a different way, just played cards differently, she probably would have gotten Batman's help. Back in the past, when Bruce destroyed the Batman merch store, Jim Gordon stops him, and Bruce thinks he's there to talk about him and his mother and the romantic relationship they have, but Jim knows that both he and Martha are grown-ups and they can look after themselves, but he's there to talk about Bruce, not so subtly implying to Bruce that he knows that Bruce is Batman. Bruce is surprised, wanting to know how he figured it out, and Gordon makes it pretty obvious since 6'9", 400-pound guys stand out pretty easy in Gotham, and he literally rescued Bruce from a pile of bats, so it was rather easy for him to put two and two together. So I didn't really see this storyline going this way, but I love that Jim, this ex-detective, ex-mayor, is immediately figured out who the Batman is, and instead of it devolving into an argument, Bruce ends up finding kind of a father figure in him as he asks if Jim is going to make him stop, and Jim just asks, hey, do you want me to stop you? Because I'll try, but Jim knows that that's not what Bruce wants, and Bruce tells him that he is in over his head because Bruce never figured that Batman would be this big as it's gotten, and it's happened so quickly. And he wanted to affect the city, but he didn't expect him to become the Light himself. Jim understands that, and that Bruce might have to tap into something darker, but he doesn't really have any advice. However, he does want to tell him something his daughter Barbara once told him. I really love that Jim knows the secret. Bruce has been missing that mentor father figure for a while, and while Alfred kinda sorta fills that role, but also kinda doesn't, Jim is such the better fit for this Bruce. He's got that connection to his parents, the connection to Martha, of course. He's known Bruce since he was a kid. Bruce knows Barbara, so there was that kind of familial connection there going on. So it just makes more sense than Alfred. Back in the present, Barbara returns to help Batman, ripping him out of the vines he's trapped in as she tells him that SWAT is about to enter with some new noise cannons, so they need to get out of there quick. Batman doesn't want to go, grabbing Barbara's noise cannon and telling her about the spores the villain is going to release on the city, so they have to destroy them quickly. Ivy doesn't think he stands a chance as Martha has a gun shoved in her face by the court, told by the owl that they hoped that she would listen to reason. Martha knows that they stood for something once, and she fought back from the shadows against the rich and powerful, and while Grimm crushed them, maybe it was a blessing in disguise since now they can become something new. This is such a great inverse of Bruce's story where he's resisting the change, and we've got Martha here who wants the change to make a difference, which is kind of contradicting what she said to Bruce at the start of the issue on that message where she told him not to change. It's very intriguing, even more so when you think that both of these stories, the Poison Ivy story and the Martha Court of Owls story, all both about change, all are stemming from Jack Grimm. Jack Grimm did this to both parties, and we have wildly different takes on how to deal with that from both sides of the spectrum. It's wonderful we're getting both sides. We're not just getting told that this is the right way and this is the way the book is going to do that. We're getting to explore all of them, and then we can do that because we have characters like Martha Wayne still around. The Court of Owls is here. We can do all of this. Martha thinks if they won't evolve, then they might as well pull the trigger on her. Bruce meanwhile pulls the trigger on his own gun as he blasts Ivy with the noise cannon, and while it doesn't kill her, it does reveal something important to her, Ivy's heart. Bruce reveals that he thought Ivy hadn't gone fully through with the evolution that she's been trying to sell him on, and blasting her with a cannon and revealing her heart confirmed his suspicion. He tells Ivy that she is to destroy the spores or he will shoot the heart and destroy it, and while she can regrow it and come back to life, it would mean the one thing her mother held, her heart, wouldn't be the last original part of Pamela Isley anymore. it would be something else. Back in the past, Bruce learns what Barbara told Jim and how when he was mayor, he had his own plan and own agenda, but the whole city was looking to him to do so much more and to be so much more, and he couldn't hold it together. He remembers Barbara, who was studying biology at the time, told him that ivy does climb, but it also clings to something, holding on to what it's climbing up, and Bruce knows that Pamela doesn't want to lose the last piece of herself. She's fine for everyone else to lose everything about themselves. She doesn't want to commit to that change. As the SWAT team breach into the forest and Martha tells the court that they are all better than this, Ivy relents, giving up and destroying her spores and telling Batman that he has doomed himself since he is so small and weak and human. Bruce knows that he has been that, but he's not going to be that anymore. He turns the cannon to full and blows Ivy's heart apart, effectively killing the villain, at least for now. There's a really interesting part in all of this as Bruce is coming to this realization that obviously he needs to, ditch his connections and everything. He needs to get rid of the clingers, so to speak, to become Batman, to become what he needs to be for the city. And I like in the artwork, Bruce never removes the cowl and the cape he's wearing over his face. So literally, you don't see any of the human part of the Batman. It's all just the Batman. And I really like that symbolism there, that visual symbolism there. He's no longer Bruce Wayne. He is the Batman. This is also something I did not 100% see coming. I get what Snyder is doing here. We're kind of doing the reverse of what we usually get with the Batman story, where usually Batman starts out alone, he gets that support group, realizes he needs that support group. Here we're doing the reverse, where he started with that group, realizes he needed it, and then realizes, oh, that's actually something that's holding me back and preventing me from being Batman, so I'm going to ditch it from now on. It's basically doing a reverse of what we usually get. I'm intrigued to see, because I really did love the idea that he had that support network. That was one of the big things I loved about this book, that he realized so early on that he needed it. So I'm intrigued to see what Snyder is going to do with that. Like, this complete inverse and twist on the story that I thought we were going to get with it, where we get his friends helping him out, but it looks like they're all going to be against him, or he's going to shut them out completely. So that's really interesting, and I'm intrigued to see what Snyder's going to do with it. As Batman deals with Ivy, the court fires at Martha, seemingly killing her, although it's done off panel, so I don't think the Court of Owls actually did shoot her. Though that being said, we did get that signposty message at the start, the last message on the phone sort of thing. So it's definitely being set up to make you think that Martha is dead. But I reckon the Court of Owls, the guy that was going to shoot her, actually shot the other members of the Court of Owls, and they're going to restart the Court of Owls as something different, something that will make Martha become a Talon again. And hey, maybe that puts her at odds with her son. Maybe as Talon, she ends up fighting Batman, or hell, even fighting alongside Batman. Batman and Barbara Gordon, meanwhile, escape as SWAT find the still alive Ivy, who vows to kill Batman for destroying her heart. As they leave, Barbara asks Batman why he destroyed her heart. But all Batman says is that Ivy said a fight was coming and they need to evolve, so he took her advice, and maybe they all should. There's kind of a not really so subtle, maybe subtle, I'm not really too sure what to think of it, kind of signpost here where obviously Barbara had Batman's mask from when she first found him back in issue 2 or 3, really early on in the book, where she helped him out. She got his cowl, and she is allowed to keep it, more or less. Batman doesn't really seem to care about it, and she's going to keep it, which I don't know about you, but that makes me think that, oh, she's going to use that cowl, and this is like the genesis of her becoming Batgirl. She's going to use that cowl, and that's going to be like her mask, and she's going to make her own costume and everything, and eventually we'll see Batgirl somewhere in this storyline coming up. They're definitely setting something up with Barbara Gordon here. Later on, we find all of Bruce's friends have seemingly been abandoned by Bruce, as he no longer comes by the Iceberg Lounge or Eddie's lair or Wayland's sewer. An interesting piece in this is that we find that Wayland actually survived his transformation from the necklace that Batman got from Wonder Woman, and I love that it looks like he's transformed back into human, but he's kept his Killer Croc size, so now he's just human, and he's just this huge guy. Wayland was a pretty big guy to begin with, but just from the way the art is drawn, he looks massive, he looks like a literal giant now, bigger than Batman giant. And I do hope it ends up being a thing where like he can take the necklace off and he like transforms into the Killer Croc, and maybe that's how he ends up going up against Batman or helping Batman. He can transform into the giant monster or something. But yes, Bruce has completely abandoned his Bruce Wayne persona, it seems, instead continuing on as just the Batman, who deletes the last message Martha left Bruce, not even bothering to listen to it. So this is such a darker ending than I think people realize. This is Batman with nothing left to lose now. He's turned his back on everyone and anything around him, and nothing is holding him back now. It's a complete inverse on what we had set up in those early issues with the team around him and the people around him. All that great stuff that I loved, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how Snyder plays with that, since it's not something I saw coming. I didn't think we'd be going into the more darker, I hesitate to say edgier because it's probably not going to be edgy. It's just going to be really dark and brooding. And I'm intrigued to see what that means, especially because I believe in the next issue Scarecrow turns up. So how does the fear toxin work in this world? That's got to be horrifying to see. And having already seen glimpses of what Scarecrow looked like, I can't wait to see what Snyder has in store for Absolute Scarecrow going up against Absolute Batman. Absolute Batman issue 18 rounded out the Poison Ivy Absolute Batman issue 18 rounded out Poison Ivy's first little arc in a much darker way than I anticipated, leading to Batman evolving into something Bruce didn't really want to become, but was being forced into becoming that thanks to the events of the last couple of issues as well as what we've seen of this universe so far. The balance Scott has struck between the various plot lines, from Batman dealing with Ivy to Martha Wayne and the Court of Owls, Bruce's backstories with Jim Gordon and how they're tying that in with Barbara Gordon. It's all done really well, and I love that it's all connected, all brought together by Jack Grimm. Jack Grimm is the thing at the center of all of this. It's just brilliant and terrifying that this man has ruined so many lives in the Absolute Universe. And I can't wait to see the new evolved Batman take the fight directly to him over the next couple of issues. I'm going to give this issue a 9 out of 10.